Welcome back, everybody, and good morning. It's Zach Shelley here, and
this is Kirk Teachout. And today we are talking about the hidden standard that runs your life. Now, we have a lot of standards that we hold ourselves to, and really it comes down to discipline. Discipline that we get up early. Like right now, it's 5:20 for me in the morning to do this podcast. It takes discipline to work out. If you work out, it takes discipline to go to work sometimes when you don't want to.
And on time. We all know that we got team members that don't show up on time.
Yeah. So showing up, right? And how you show up is super important, but that hidden standard that runs your life is really what you allow and what you tolerate. I can't tell you how many times I come across leaders that really are not effective simply because they're allowing things to boil up in their practice. They're allowing things to happen in their life that they're not willing to have a tough conversation about. That really is super detrimental, not only to their business, but also to the rest of the team. I've seen time and time again where amazing 10 out of 10 team members, and it's hard to have 10s on your team, but when you have 10s on your team, if you have a 5 on your team that's negative and you're not willing to try to get them to a level that is acceptable, those 10s will tend to leave because they can see that standard is lowering, and naturally those people will fall to it, or they'll leave in general because they have a better standard for themselves. And as James Clear says, we don't rise to our systems, and yet we fall to our standards. Is one of my favorite quotes in Atomic Habits.
What you tolerate truly is the key, right? Like, you have so much with your team that they rely on you as a leader to uphold the standards that you've vocalized for your practice, or the ones you have not vocalized for your practice. And it's the unwritten standard that everybody lives and believes by, which I feel like most practices run that way, on the unwritten standard, right, Kirk? Like, we have this understanding with everybody of this is how things roll. In practices, we say live and die. We're successful or we're unsuccessful. The biggest thing is we have these standards, and in my opinion, not everybody's playing the same game. And like I actually just talked about this with team reviews recently, like with our hygiene team. I was like, before we did this training, y'all were playing a different game. I had some people playing baseball, and I had some people playing soccer, and then I had some people just wandering around not knowing what's going on because there wasn't a specific vocalized standard. And let's just say for perio protocol, there was no major standard written for that. And then once we did, it was like, holy crap, we had a great hygiene team, but we didn't have these things in place. We didn't have these systems in place for you to know what game you're playing. So you got people out in La La Land, but once you define that and you vote and you lay it out, it's not even vocalizing it. It's making sure everybody's aware of it. It's more than just saying this is the standard. It's putting it on paper. It's keeping people accountable. It's following up with them and showing them like, hey, you're not following the standard we have agreed upon. So I think it's super, super important. And most practices don't even know that they don't have a standard that they're living by, because we all do, because you have to. It's just life. There is a standard. It's just what you may not have defined it because you're just flying by the seat of your pants.
Yeah, I think it's the UK that has laws that are unwritten that you could get in trouble by. And I'm like, that doesn't make sense, right? Because like you were saying, and like when you're playing different games, it doesn't make sense, right? I was watching the other day. They were playing. It looked like soccer, so they were volleying with their feet, but over a volleyball net. And I was like, man, so this is how the Mayans did it, right? This is how the Mayans were able to use their hips and their feet and arms and to get this little clay ball through, or a rubber ball through a little hole on this huge thing in Chichen Itza, right? I'm like, huh, so you can do that. But if you don't realize like that's the game that you're playing because nobody's verbalized it, then it's very tough to get on the same page. And it's amazing when you all get on the same page. Like you were saying, it's night and day different of efficiency, of care. Like, I mean, in general, right? You grow faster when you're walking the same way. I would have to say, a lot of people come to me and my wife, since, we work together a lot with the practice. They're just like, oh, I can never work with my wife. I'm like, to be honest, I have found that once we both got on the same page of this is what we want in life, I mean, opportunities just opened up, like doors slammed wide open. And our growth was exponential to a point where it's just like, wow, look at what has happened in the last, even 6 years since we bought the practice. And every year seems to be that way. I know our financial advisor is just like, every 6 months or so we'll talk, and he was like, okay, so the first thing he asks is he has on his notes is curveball. So what are you doing now? Right? Because it changes so fast when you're going in the right direction. The ability of like say you're in a car. When you're on a straight road, I mean, you can go so fast, right? So fast because it's clear, it's defined, you know exactly where you're going. But when you're on a curvy mountain, like I'm not going any faster than what I have to, right?
Unless you're just crazy and don't care.
Exactly. But I've driven over the Continental Divide and it is insane. I'm not doing it again any quicker than I have to. But I want us to focus on these three things because I want to give people like actionable steps. Number one, the analogy of being on an airplane. I was just on an airplane this weekend, so it's very fresh for me. And there was a point flying into Delray Beach or PBI, Palm Beach International, that we hit an air pocket and we dropped for it felt like an eternity, but it was probably like 3 seconds, right? 3 to 5 seconds. But in those moments, you're just like, oh no, what do I need to do? Well, if the masks drop, you put yours on first, right? You should always look inwardly first, not in a selfish way, but you have to have reflection on who you are, how you could be better. Take that extreme ownership. We talk about that book all the time, but take extreme ownership and work on yourself first, making sure that your leadership is in check and making sure that you are trying to figure out, well, what could I do better? Not, well, what can my team do better? All right. So number one, you got to focus on yourself. What do you have to say about that, Zach?
I feel like you have so much more experience talking about this subject because it's so fresh on your mind, which I love because you're just putting me up my own opinion on this within 10 minutes, which I love. But self-development, I think, is one of the most important things moving forward in leading your team. I feel like if you don't have your ducks in a row and you don't know what you're doing, you're not able to create a standard for your team because you don't have a standard for yourself. If you are trying to be a personal trainer for somebody in the gym, but you're 400 pounds, Kirk, I don't think, one, you're going to listen to me. And two, you have zero faith that I have the ability to get you to your goals and where you want to be. Right? So it's the same thing with our mindset of being physically fit mentally and having standards and expectations for myself gives me the ability to bring up and lead team members to that same expectation. So we have to honestly put a standard for ourselves way above what we expect of our team in order to do that.
That was great. Yeah. No, well, so Dan Martell talks about that, and that's why my son right now. So I've been working out a lot this year, and a lot of it has to do with what Dan Martell has been saying in his content lately about how he just started working out very intentionally. He works out, but he was tracking macros, doing all sorts of stuff. And it's because of this vein that's in your bicep when you work out. And he calls it the sports car of working out. He's like, when you have that vein come out on your bicep, that tells so many people so many things, right? That you're disciplined. And I will have to say this weekend, it finally popped out. And I was like, yes! It's something I'm working towards. So that way, like you were saying with the 400-pound person, that tells me so much about who you are, what you allow, what you tolerate in your life. And if I have a higher standard, I'm not going to accept that. And you will not be effective as a person towards me and what you say. So if we work on ourselves and get disciplined, and that's another reason why I've started working out, is because for my clients, for the people around us, for my team, I want to be disciplined and raise my leadership level, my lid of leadership, so that way I am effective still. Because I come in contact with so many people. And I'm like, okay, well, if I want to be able to influence, not as an influencer, but just influence people and create impact, then I have to be on point and grow as a person. So you have to first focus on yourself. You have to focus on yourself. So I think we've covered that. Number 2, you have to define the standard out loud. So this is what you've kind of touched on already, Zach, but we have to define it out loud. And honestly, what's really fun is when you have a meeting with your team and they're included in the development of this standard. Because at this point, they take pride of, oh no, I helped, develop this. So I want to be involved because at the end of the day, like, I'm the one that's on the hook for it because I'm the one that, like, it's a little pride, right? It's like, I did this, so I don't want it to fail. So you have to define it out loud. And if you've ever had trouble defining your standard, or maybe you're struggling with holding your standard, this is something that you should do. You need to have a meeting with your team.
And if you're listening and you're watching this, you should be writing this down. So get your pen and notepad out, write this down, pause it, and write it down.
Yes. What we need to do, we need to have a meeting. You need to sit down with them and you need to apologize. You start this meeting with, I am sorry that I have not been the leader that I needed to be for you and that you needed. But from this day forward, that changes because I'm working on myself and I'm working to hold a standard and create a standard for you guys that will not only help us grow as a team, but also provide the care that we expect with our practice. And with defining that standard at that point, when you're a leader and now you're starting to hold people to a standard that you never have before of things that you've allowed and things that you've tolerated in the past, they're not as shocked. Because if you just start randomly holding a standard that, 1, you haven't defined, and 2, you haven't in a while, they're like, well, where did this come from? You get a lot more pushback. So you need to define the standard out loud. And a lot of times, like, not the main standard, but once you set the standard, like, hey, this is where we are. Well, cool. So how can we set the standard with the patients, right? And have them involved in that. So for instance, we've talked about before, like refusing x-rays, not acceptable because our standard of care does not allow for it. Ever so often, if we have maybe some x-rays that are a little older, like within the last 6 months or so, but if they're a little older and we had them sent over from another office and they don't want to pay, sure, I get it. We'll see what we can do. But the standard of care is we need x-rays to be able to see the health of your mouth. If we can't do that, I'm sorry. Like, there is somebody who will refuse x-rays for 5 years and then your teeth will fall out. That is not here.
Being in a practice that had standards and core values before I started was helpful for me because, that's one thing that I was able to know where the office stood, but then also know that the team members understood them. Coming in, I'm like, do you know our core values and our mission statement, like what we actually stand for? Now, was every standard on processes laid out? No, but they all had a general understanding of what our goal is and what we stand for. And I think it's super important because bringing on new team members, you're able to sit down with them before you ever hire them and say, this is what we believe in. This is how we do it. And these are the standards that we set. Do you have any questions? And what that does is from day one, like you said, Kirk, you're able to hold that team member accountable And if there's kickback, it's like, well, you told me you understood, and let's have a different conversation. Because then you've also signed, which I'm going to name drop Travis Campbell here, which he's a genius with insurance, and a good friend of mine. But not only with that, he has this thing that I adopted from him, which is a general team expectation sheet. And we also have that, which sets the standard of what we expect of you day in and day out. That is very easy to hold somebody accountable and say, well, when I onboarded you, you signed this, and these are the expectations that I have for you. And these are the standards that we agreed upon. Let's have a conversation about this. And it's a lot easier to have that conversation with that said team member, good or bad, because they're like, hey, we've discussed this, and either you're crushing it and I'm thanking you, or I'm discussing it with you and saying, hey, I'm bringing this to light right now. You know, this is an expectation. You can't play dumb with me because you signed it. And if you did sign it without reading it, you should read everything that we're talking about. But then we also just have that standard of expectation that I'm going to hold you accountable to these things, and we're going to move forward with our day. And if you're not doing it, we'll have conversations about it. And it's not hard. And a lot of times the team members that we do this process with, or if you start doing it in your practice, you'll notice it's a lot easier to hold them to the standard that you've set because you have vocalized it with them. They have read it. They have signed it. They know what you expect. So if you say, hey, Kirk, XYZ, and you're not doing it, you're like, this is what I expect with you moving forward. Do you have any questions? It's not going to be like, what a dirtbag. He came with that out of left field. It's like, no, I knew that was coming. So you will be able to weed out those fives. You know what I mean? Or you may be able to take that 5 and build them up to a 7 or an 8. It just depends on how that person wants to develop, but at least they're aware of what's going on. Because blindsiding your team members on an expectation that they don't know about, that's just a recipe for disaster.
We have team agreements, right? So every year we go over it at our planning meeting again at the end of the year of team agreements. I will not be negative. I will not gossip. I will, like, all these things that we kind of go through and agree to that set the standard. Once again, if they sign it, I'm like, hey, do you see where you signed right here on this? It's like, that's what we've talked about. And, clarity is kindness. I forget who says that.
Brené Brown, clear as kind.
That's the good quality of a leader, is you don't have to take the credit.
I literally tell people that every day since I've read that book. Clear as kind. And I think what's more important from that quote that she writes is unclear is unkind. I don't know if you remember that, but like it's obviously the exact opposite. And it sounds funny, but you are disservicing your team. What is so funny?
Sorry. It does sound really funny, but it is true.
It does. Yes. And a lot of people laugh when I say it, but I'm like, it's so rudimentary. It's like an elementary style comment, right? Like clear is kind. Clear is kind. Like I feel like that would be a video you watch in school teaching this kid unclear is unkind. But if you really dig about it and you think about it, like if I have an expectation for Kirk, and Kirk, I never vocalize anything to you, and then just one day I'm like, dude, you suck. Like that's a dirtbag move because I've never been clear with you. Or if I'm upset with you over something that you're not performing on, say we work together in an aspect, obviously on this podcast, but like if I was like, Kirk, you weren't on time, I never said anything, but I'm mad at you about it. So like I just record without you. That's super unkind because you have no idea I'm upset. You have no idea that I'm struggling with something that you're doing. And it's one of those things like we foster in our practice, like my team feels comfortable coming and saying, hey, like I'm struggling with this. I'm like, let's talk about it. Let's have a conversation. We've made these cultures and built these offices and practices and systems around like being quiet about things and not talking about them. And like, we're too busy to deal with that. But like, if you hash these out and you have these conversations and you're super clear about it, like you see so much more success. I love having conversations with my team members and like, okay, moving forward, this is what we're going to be doing. Do you understand? And they're like, yeah, love it. Like, this is great. I'm like, awesome. Like we just talked about it the other day, uniform shenanigans. And I just said, this is exactly what I want. And this is what we're going to do moving forward. Does anybody have any questions? And day 2, guess what? Everybody's following that standard that I set for them because I vocalized with them. And I said, hey, this is what we're doing. And this is why. if you have questions, come see me. Nobody came. And day 2 is exactly what I requested.
This is really small, but I've started doing this with my kids and people as well. So if you ever hear me after I say something or tell you to do something, I'll ask, did I explain that well? Versus, do you understand? Because do you understand is a jab at like the intelligence versus did I explain that well? It is like, hey, let me make sure I'm clear. I want to make sure that I explained it well. Because if I need to be clearer, I can. As a leader, we're only as effective as what we allow or tolerate. And that hidden standard is what runs our life. So number 1, we need to focus on ourselves. We need to rise as a leader. We need to grow as a leader. Number 2, we need to define the standard out loud and make sure that people understand and it's clear and everybody knows. But number 3, we need to build systems around the standard, not the standard around the systems. But you need to build systems around the standard. Like I've already said, for instance, clinically, our standard of care is we got to take x-rays. That is the standard. It's not, let's bend to the standard because of the system of like, okay, well, everybody takes x-rays. And a lot of times we write them off because once again, the information is more important than the $27 we're going to charge somebody or whatever. But you need to build the systems around the standard. So that way there's, once again, clarity in the system. Like you were saying, perio protocol. I mean, that's a big one. Everybody has a standard of care with that. It's like, okay, cool. What is the perio protocol? Is everybody following that? When do we do it? Why do we do it? And what is the standard of care after it if we find this, right? What are some other ways that you can think that we can build a system around the standard versus maybe not clinically?
Setting standards for your schedule, setting standards for answering your phones, setting standards for new patient paperwork, setting standards for morning huddle. That's my jam. You have standards and you have systems that you have to build in your practice, and it's not going to happen overnight. So some of y'all might be listening, especially docs. Like if this is a doc listening, don't go into your office this morning or tomorrow and be like, all right, we're setting this, we're doing this, we're doing this, we're doing this. You're going to piss your entire team off. Like they're going to be angry with you and it's not going to work. And you're probably going to cause more problems than good. Pick one. And it would be the meeting of saying, I'm sorry. Let's start with that. And then we'll go from there.
And if you need help with that meeting, feel free to reach out because I've done these meetings a ton.
Kirk is volunteering to do it via Zoom for free for any practice in the United States. It's a special we're running right now. No, seriously, you guys can reach out to us on social media through the Facebook groups, through our personal pages, Instagram, all that stuff. We're always happy to help and give you our knowledge. I'm totally kidding. Kirk is not volunteering to do this, but we will guide you through these. And I feel like we've given you a really good guide so far, but don't go in tomorrow. Like there's a course I wrote for our office that we were talking about, like the art of asking questions. And, I went through over so much material and like they're all the assistants are just sitting bug-eyed, like at the end, like this is so much. And I was like, so what I'm asking you guys to do today is absolutely nothing. And they're like, what? And I'm like, I don't want you to do anything. All I want you to do is just ask your patients, do you mind if I ask you a question? And go from there. I'm asking you to do one small thing. What I did in that course was teach you to understand the different types of questions, how to engage with your patients and do it differently. We will work on that and we'll move forward and I'll start listening to those conversations. But like, I'm not asking you to uproot everything that you know how to do. And that's the biggest problem, I think, when we're trying to grow and build practices and change things is like, dude, I listened to this podcast with these two cool dudes that like, they were talking about like expectations and all these fun things. And guys, we're going to do it all. It's going to be amazing. And it's like, no. Back off, bro. Like, I know you're excited, but that's not the way to do it. We're really good at trying to make change like quickly. But you have to be methodical about it. There's a system in that also, a system of change. And that actually might be a great podcast, Kirk. What is your system of change?
Getting your team to buy in is the hardest part.
I mean, that's my 2 cents on it.
This has been another great episode of Management Unfiltered. Today, we talked about the standard that is quietly running your life, that's hidden, but it's the standard that we tolerate. and or allow in our life, make sure that you leave us a comment.
Like, subscribe.
Yep. Get on the YouTubes. Let us know. Get in Zach's group. Get on my Instagram at Kirk Teachout, and let us know what you want to listen to, what you want to hear from us. We're doing a lot of different series on why and when and things. We want to know what you want to hear about. So make sure to do that. We appreciate you guys so much. Have a great day.
Until next time, guys.